Hello and welcome to the sixth part of OpenRCT2 Graphics, a tutorial series about the RCT-graphics-helper add-on for Blender. After creating some textures in the last episode, we are now going to take a closer look at how RCT is interpreting color in general. And as an easy and fun way to get into this, I thought recoloring might be of interest for many of you. But first, a little announcement. Oli4, the original creator of the RCT-graphics-helper add-on, has transferred ownership of his GitHub repository to the OpenRCT2 project. New updates are now being published under this new URL here. As of today, the latest release is version 0.6.0. This version is introducing a change in the render output. It is adding a small color correction that darkens shadows. That was a necessary change for the OpenGraphics project because the previous outputs were looking undesirably flat and had low contrast. Alright, let's get into recoloring. I have prepared a fresh Blender scene, and I have also created this object description here for a test object, and this object is also imported into RCT here. I've not done anything else, so let's quickly get this cube in the right position. That looks about right. Nice. As soon as you restart the plugin by clicking Initialize Repair, Blender will create 3 materials for recoloring for you here. You see that none of them are used currently, so there's this 0 in front of that. You can create a fake user so that the material does not get deleted as soon as you save and close Blender. So those 3 recolorable materials will be here forever now. And the one that you don't need to worry about is world position. That's actually a render internal material. Don't worry about it. It will get deleted as soon as you close Blender. All right. Now I'm going to select the first recolor option here, and by increasing this number I can tell the software to, for example, implement 2 colors into the object, and I also need to add 2 flags to the list here, which is has primary color true. Just add that in here somewhere. And also has secondary color true, because I'm going to add 2 colors for this object. I'm just copying those from the butterfly object here, but you can also type that out by hand. All right, saving that and giving this a render. And you see it adds the sprites here. If you have those already, don't worry about it. And now as soon as I look at this object, it is able to be recolored. The same thing obviously is true also for the second material. Going to put that in the second slot here and assign it to this face. Let's give it a quick render, and this should be good to go. Yes. Nice. So this obviously looks a little bit boring for now. So you probably want to have some textures in there as well and not have it as plain as it is right now. Let's change that as well. And I'm now working on the first recolor material and giving it a quick texture. By the way, if you are using the rendered preview here, you should always check that you have your lights enabled in the viewport. Those are marked off for all the other views for your convenience, but actually they are not showing up in the rendered view if they are not visible in the viewport here. We might actually change that at some point because this gets confusing quite fast. But yeah, just click on the eye icon here and you will have a lit scene. Let's quickly change the texture coordinates from UV to generated. Not bothering about creating a UV map right now. And the image sampling I want to have at 0.2 as always to get a much crisper result. Let's have a look. It's not showing up nicely right now, but you can already see that there is some change here. I'm probably going to adjust the brightness to something like 0.6 and the contrast as well. Yeah, you can already tell that it is starting to show up here. Let's maybe even decrease that further. And reduce the contrast to have a less extreme texture here. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I can imagine that you will find many ways to tweak this and make it work for your project. One thing that I would like you to notice is that the color you see here in the pre-generated objects is not actually mattering. You can set that to whatever you like. This is primarily for you to get a visual representation which recolor this face is assigned to currently in Blender. This might make it darker or lighter in the color spectrum that you are getting in here, but it is not actually affecting how Blender is sorting that material into a specific recolor slot. What does affect how those colors are sorted into the recolor slots is this pass index number down here. You will see that Recolor 1 has pass index 1, Recolor 2 has pass index 2, and for completion Recolor 3 has pass index 3. But technically, if you have like multiple textures that you want to be controlled by, let's say, the first recolor, you could create just your own recolor material and set that pass index to the corresponding number. So to prove that point, I will assign this face to this new material here and delete those other two materials. And now we should see that this object is purely controlled by the first color here. And you could have different materials for this recolorable one. Let's say it's a wood texture. And this recolorable one, let's give that a dirt texture. And that's what you get. Now let's talk about one big limitation that is part of this process. You might remember that in the mushroom tutorial, we were just painting on the object and that resulted in two different colors, let's put it like this. And even if you could use that input to make Blender switch between different materials for those spots and for the cap, Blender is not able to get the pass index of those painted faces and the other ones. Imagine if there's even transparency involved. So you would have like half this recolor, half that recolor. That does not work like this. So unfortunately, if you want to have non-recolorable parts and recolor 1 parts and recolor 2 parts, you need to model those separately. I will show you an example where I did that quickly and had to work around this issue in a OpenGraphics object. So the object I am talking about is the butterfly from the giant garden theming. And you can see here that in this model that I modeled all the parts of the wing as polygons and assigned different materials to those parts here. What I had planned to do earlier in this previous version was to paint those on using almost the same technique that I showed you with the toadstool, but that didn't work because I had to assign a third material that combined those two, and this third material cannot have either pass index 1 or 2 or 0. I had to change plans, and this is the final version that came out of it. And with that, welcome to the last section of this video. It's opinion time. These are some personal thoughts about the advantages or disadvantages of having an object recolorable, especially if I'm going to create a custom object. Then there are different audiences that those objects will reach eventually. Especially if you are going to create that object for an advanced community like New Element, it obviously makes sense to give the user as much freedom as you can. So in some cases there are like the trees recolorable. You would give the user as much freedom as you can. If you are going to create objects for a casual playing audience, or want to adhere to the, as I see it, implicit style guide that RCT is following, then you should focus on making only very specific parts of objects recolorable. And those are either man-made parts, like objects that can be painted in real life, like the cogwheel here or this fence, or objects that are generally colorful, like sweets or flowers. And in many cases, it is actually desirable to only give that freedom to part of an object. This might seem limiting at first, but actually it helps the user make good design choices for their park, and the object will instantly be more readable without having to figure out how it will look in its final form. Also in the object selection menu, you will instantly know what you are getting. And there are always new users using a game for the first time that might need some time to figure out that you actually can recolor objects and how that whole system works. So from the perspective of good game design, it might actually be super user-friendly to limit the choices that you present to the player. Another disadvantage that you might run into while using recolors in your object is that you are limited to a certain set of colors. An image that the human eye would perceive as rich and engaging usually has a greater bit depth, meaning it has more colors to choose from. If you look closely, you might find colors that you wouldn't usually expect to be in an object, but that will commonly be there in real life. In this wagon, for example, you will find multiple green pixels here, or even some clearly salmon-colored pixels. This richness in color will not happen if you are making use of the recolor option, because all those pixels are strictly using a small predefined set of colors. In any case, I'm super excited to see what recolor objects you are going to come up with, and feel free to share them in the comments, or if you have questions, share those as well, and I'll make sure to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, feel free to like the video and share it to the community. And I'll see you in the next episode.